Okay, y'all, so let's talk about this. So, there's a challenge that was issued to Moses Itauma, and this is from the team of Murat Gassiev. Now, basically, on December 12th of this year, Gassiev got a 6-round knockout over Kubrat Pulev, and it was a one-punch left hook that he didn't see coming. He's 32 years old. Pulev is 44. Now, Pulev was actually holding his own in that fight, and he got hit with a shot he didn't see coming, and it was lights out. Now, that is the threat that Murat Gassiev poses, is that he can crack with both hands and he can get a person out with one shot. Now, in 2018, he was defeated by Alexander Usyk in the cruiserweight division. And Usyk, of course, he boxed and moved, and he outclassed him, and he got the decision. And I think it was 2023, he lost to Itauma. Now, Itauma, we know, went the distance with Tyson Fury, cut him, and held his own in that fight as well. Then he got destroyed by Anthony Joshua later. Things happen, and a lot of times people look at a fight and say, oh, this guy beat that guy, he beat him, so he'll beat him, and you really cannot judge fights like that. I'll say it again. You got situations where George Foreman destroyed Joe Frazier and Ken Norton. He didn't just beat him, he destroyed him. So therefore, there was no reason for anybody to believe that Muhammad Ali was going to beat George Foreman based on that. And, Foreman got stopped by Muhammad Ali. Now, of course, Ali also beat Norton and Frazier. They beat him and he beat them. But we can't go by that. There's so many fights, so many. You just can't go by that. Even when guys fight similar, a lot of times you think, well, he beat that guy, he fights just like him or a lot like him, so he'll beat him. But these little adjustments and different things that fighters do, like when people, that make a big difference. Like when people were saying Adrian Broner is a more powerful version of Floyd. I'm like, first of all, he's not more powerful. I don't know where you guys get that from. And two, there's so many differences between Floyd and Adrian Broner. So when it comes to that, people will look and think they can just judge a fight automatically. Now, looking at this crop of heavyweights that's out here right now, think about this. Murat is 32-2. Those are the only 2 losses that he's had in his whole career. Okay, not having any wins that put you in that position where you are now a superstar. People are now looking at you as one of the top guys. That's where he is. Now, beating Kubrat Pulev, he is now the WBA regular champion. They issued a challenge out to Moses Itauma, and of course they're kind of talking a little like, hey, he hasn't responded, so well, hey, it's out there if he wants to step up. So get off of the path of fighting, like beating Dillian Whyte, for example. Dillian Whyte's been washed up for a while, and I don't think too many people saw Dillian Whyte really doing anything. I mean, people have fans, and the fans a lot of times are delusional. They'll just say things based on what they want to happen. But he did what he was supposed to do to Dillian Whyte. Now, for Murat to be considered a step up, and he is dangerous with that left hand, especially that left hand, but he can crack with both hands. I think it is a good fight for Moses Itauma to take. Now, the belt doesn't really mean anything as far as I'm concerned, because the way I see it, the 4 belts that you need to be undisputed are the only belts that really matters. All these other belts are just, you're fortunate if you get the favoritism to a degree. To a degree, you're fortunate if you get the favoritism of having that belt where you can get certain fights where other guys can't, which I don't like the nitpicking. I don't like the skipping of the line stuff. But you don't need a WBA regular title to be undisputed. So those belts really you're just paying sanctioning fees, helping these people line their pockets up. And, the things that they say they use the money for, okay, cool. It is what it is. But as far as a step up, it would be great for Moses. Because if he does go in there and he does, beat this guy as well, hey, look, he's not old. He's only 32 years old. He's 32. Now, when you've been boxing for a long time, 32 to some people are old, depending on, who the fighter is and the type of wear and tear that they have on their bodies. But I think it's a good fight for Moses Itauma. And two guys that can punch, two guys that are strong. And you have people that may say, oh, Moses will knock him out. He just might. The point is, we don't want to sit up and try to prejudge what will happen. Why not? Especially if who you're going to take is going to be a lesser fighter. You understand what I mean? So for this, I feel like it'll be a good fight, a good test. And for me, when I look at fights, man, I don't look at the fights where let's just critique and play strategy guide for these guys. I see what I see, but a fight is a fight. And I feel like even like when the fighters lose, a lot of times, man, and they are broken up, they're never the same after the loss, not because of the beating, psychologically. It's like, bro, this is what you do for a living, man. You lost, okay, cool. You know what? No, nobody likes to lose, but you lost. Take it, learn. What did you do wrong? Where were you going wrong? What were the things that was happening? Because sometimes it's little things, like that little half step you should take that you don't take. The fact that you shoot your jab out and you don't keep your shoulder up to protect your chin, you're doing this shit here, you're getting cute and you got clipped. It's little things that people don't pay attention to. I look at Moses and the hype behind him right now, it's legit. He goes in here against a guy like Murat Gassiev, and this is what people are quick to say, oh, this guy wasn't that good, but look at who he lost to. You understand what I mean? It's not like his losses came from some scrubs, but bottom line, the challenge is out there. And unless you're going to take an opponent that's considered better than him, why not? And it will be for a WBA regular title. Now, as far as them, how fast they want to move Moses, I have not heard them say anything about we're moving him too quickly or we want to take our time and keep a slow pace. I don't really know. Boxing is in a weird state right now, so we'll just have to see what happens. But I think that's a good fight. And pretty much, if Moses can beat a guy like this, it would say a lot. Especially if he beats him convincingly. Example of something. When we watched Jared Anderson beat Charles Martin, a lot of people was glad that just the fact that, Jared got the win and, Charles got more experience. But Charles Martin was washed up. And the fact that fight went the distance, the fact that Jared Anderson was getting hit with clean blows that he shouldn't have got hit with in that fight against a guy who was basically defenseless at certain points in that fight when Jared would start to let his hands go and he was catching Charles Martin with clean shots, but Charles was taking the shots and he wasn't as reluctant as I've seen him in other fights. I knew Jared had some growing to do. Let Jared tell it. Jared says he's been wanting to step up and fight stiffer competition. But it's his handlers, it's the management, it's the team, it's not him. So when he fought Martin Bakole was the favorite by most of us. But there was a lot of unknown, a lot of uncertainties, and skill-wise, it seemed like Jared would be the slicker between the two, the quicker, and just as aggressive. But one thing that I saw with Bakole was I saw him take punches, I seen him get hit with shots. That's why when Joseph Parker cracked him when he went down, people were so shocked. Well, we know it was a story behind that about, first we heard he was in shape, he wasn't in shape. Martin Bacole's a guy who he just doesn't train hard enough, man. His conditioning and whatever, that big pot belly, all that's just not necessary. But bottom line is, in that fight, we saw Jared Anderson show exactly what we knew about him. Hearing him do interviews and saying how he only wanted to fight for 2 or 3 years. I don't need a belt to validate me. Boxing isn't my life. There's other things. So why did you do this? Everything was just to make quick money. And him talking about getting to the big bag without being a champion first. It was like, wow, okay, no dedication. That right there can be the difference between two people. One guy's dedicated, he wants this, and the other doesn't. Well, Martin Bakole is also a guy who slouches in the gym, doesn't train the way he should. There's no way you're going to tell me that guy looks like that he can't change that about himself. He can't get in better shape. Well, when he got knocked out by Joseph Parker, he started making a lot of excuses. Hey, you took the fight, man. And yeah, it was on short notice, so we know the ins and outs. But once you take it, you took it. You knew what the risks were. You knew what the dangers were. And you took it anyway. So that all being said, the thing with Moses Itauma, he's looking far more solid than a Jared Anderson right now. Which is one of the things I said, well, he wouldn't need a Jared Anderson. He doesn't need a Charles Martin. He doesn't need those type of fights. Now, to gain the experience and to get in there with different styles and guys that are still crafty, whatever, however you want to look at it, the heavyweight division is not deep with a bunch of skillful fighters, first of all. Let's be honest. But two, that's one of the reasons why I don't see it where there's a thing of you have to move him really slow. And especially you guys are calling him the new British, heavyweight Mike Tyson. Well, Mike Tyson, they fought who was there. And, it got a time later on where a lot of fights didn't happen. Like I always wanted to see Mike Tyson versus Ika Beabuchi. Hell, I wanted to see Holyfield versus Ika Beabuchi. I wanted to see Mike Tyson versus David Tua. I wanted to see Holyfield versus Razor Ruddock. Like, there's a lot of fights. We didn't get a Tommy Morrison versus Holyfield, a Tommy Morrison versus a Mike Tyson. We didn't get Riddick Bowe versus Lennox Lewis. I mean, there's a lot of fights that we wanted to see. But bottom line is, yeah, Mike, it was a time in his career where later on certain fights wasn't happening. We didn't know why. But yeah, for Moses Itauma, I don't think he needs to take a bunch of soft touches. That also can give you a fighter false confidence to make them think that they're better than they are. And then when they finally get in there with a guy who's, even if he slacks, he's still dangerous, like a Martin Bacoli. And that's what happened with Jared Anderson. With Moses Itauma, he cracks more power. He packs more power than Jared Anderson. I think he's just better than Jared Anderson overall. I think he'll knock Jared Anderson out if they fought. But this is a fight that I wouldn't mind seeing, and especially to fight a hard puncher like that's been in there with two experienced guys already. That's what people don't understand. And he has way more fights than Moses. So this would definitely be a step up, and this is what the challenge is. If he wants a step up in competition, right, they're offering that, and the WBA regular belt is on the line. So I haven't heard anything from Team Moses Itauma. I don't know what's going to happen, if he wants to challenge, if that fight will actually happen or not, but I'm looking forward to it. That's all I got for you guys now. Catch you guys on the next video. Also, a little fun factor that I forgot to add in. Moses Itauma is actually said to be scheduled to, at least negotiating a fight with Jermain Franklin. Now, we know Jermain Franklin is most known for his fight for Dillian White with Anthony Joshua. And he lost both of those fights, but, that was a lot of people, even for the first time, both of those fights were in the UK. Both of those fights was like the first time that a lot of the American public got to see of him, because Jermain Franklin just wasn't the guy that people knew. Now, if Moses Itauma gets past him, and that's the thing, I say Jermain Franklin can be a sturdy test. Jermain Franklin has a tendency to lose focus in fights often, but he still can be a sturdy test, not a slouch, not a pushover, and we'll see what happens. And that's what I forgot to add in the video. If he gets past, now let's say this fight happens, he gets past Jermain Franklin, the offer still stands. So I don't know if anything's finalized between these two yet. I didn't see anything posted about it yet that it's final, but if it does happen, cool. If it doesn't happen, let's say he decides, well, you know what, let's go for that WBA regular belt. Either way, it is what it is. But that is something I forgot to add into the video, that yes, he is at least, negotiating with fighting a Jermain Franklin. And hey, you know what? The thing is, if you're going to move guys, like, I always said too, it's amazing to me how, like, a guy like Michael Hunter, who I forget is still fighting, and then all of a sudden, like a couple of months ago, I think it was a video popped up that he had a fight, or an article or something it was. But a guy like him, Jermain Franklin, like these guys that are here in the States, that no one has put anything together for these guys who, you know, the smaller guys, the Keyshawn Davises, Lamont Roach, you know, Tank Davis, certain guys that have already gotten some type of exposure. And you think that they will put some of these heavyweights on the cards to help them to get some exposure as well. And I don't mean like prelims, because prelims is when the building is empty, of course. Jermain Franklin, I don't know how much of a following he has, but, you know, I think if you put him, Michael Hunter, I said the same thing when Deontay Wilder, his last fight that Deontay Wilder had. They could have put those guys on that card. Like, you know, I don't know what it is, you know, timing. Certain fighters aren't ready at certain time. I really don't know what's going on with boxing. It's a lot of just weird things happening in boxing. But, yeah, Jermain Franklin, like I said, he can be a tough guy if he's focused. But he loses focus often in fights. And I think looking at it from the perspective of him having more experience, I know how people think the fight may go. In all honesty, I think Moses Itauma should like really beat him soundly. And we see how things happen from there. Murat Gassiev, you know, one of these things, if you don't get caught with an unnecessary shot, you keep your focus, and you got a nice beard, can take a punch as well. I would think Moses should beat both of them. But again, we don't know until the fight happens. A lot of times a guy get in there and they don't fight the way you think they're going to fight. And they end up losing the fight. And you're going, wow. Or they have a much tougher time winning than everybody anticipated. So you can never take anybody lightly. That's the guy, Jermain Franklin. So that's why in the thumbnail I put Moses minus Jermain Franklin, meaning he beat him, can equal the fight with Murat Gassiev. I don't know if they feel like it's worth, you know, the WBA regular title, as well as the challenge of Murat Gassiev. We'll know when they respond if it's going to happen or not. Anyway, just wanted to add that because that's a major part of this video, and I forgot to add that. Now I'm done. Catch you guys on the next video.